Namaste. This is David Hawthorne at astroview.com. Today is the 2nd of October 2017. This is the horoscope for the time of the mass shooting in Las Vegas last night at 10:08 p.m. That's when the shooting began. The first calls went to the police department about the shooting. Now, using systems approach to Vedic astrology, as developed by Professor V.K. Chaudhry, we see that Rahu and Ketu, the north and south nodes of the moon, which are mathematical ecliptic points in the zodiac, were extremely close to the rising sign degree. This is known as most effective point of every house. And any planet within a 5-degree orb, so it would start at 22 degrees and go up to 2 degrees in the next sign, will have an impact in the house it occupies and the houses it aspects. So Rahu and Ketu, anytime you're looking at any chart, if Rahu and Ketu are close to the rising sign degree, that is not ideal. That really causes stress. Rahu throws an aspect 5 houses away, 7 houses away, and 9 houses away. Ketu throws an aspect 5, 7, and 9 houses away. So Rahu and Ketu were afflicting 6 of the 12 houses, including the first house of self, the third house of communications and self-efforts, the house of mind, the house of relationships, the house of religion and morality, and the house of friendships. So those 6 houses were afflicted, and it also undermines the strength of moon, ruling the masses, because this house is afflicted and it's ruled by the moon. It also undermines the strength of Mercury and Sun, because this house is afflicted by Ketu. Mercury rules the 5th house of mind, and Sun rules the 4th house of property. Saturn becomes weak, ruling the masses, because it's in old age degrees. It's in a house afflicted by Rahu, and it is afflicted by Rahu. This is a severe affliction to Saturn. And Saturn is Ayush Karaka, significator for longevity. And it rules the masses. So Moon ruling the public is utterly weak at 0 degrees. And its house is afflicted by both Rahu and Ketu. Unexpected calamities. The Mahadasha ruler was Mars. Mars for Taurus is a functional malefic planet. It rules the 12th house, one of the 3 Dustan Bhavas, inauspicious houses. Planets ruling the 6th house, the 8th house, and the 12th house can, in some cases, become functional malefic planets. For Taurus, Venus, ruling the 6th house, is a malefic planet. Jupiter, ruling the 8th house, is a malefic planet. It's the most malefic planet. And Mars, ruling the 12th house, is a malefic planet, functional malefic. So notice the close connection within 3 degrees of each other, 2 degrees of each other, Venus and Mars. So this is a planetary war. Venus rules the 6th house of conflict, enemies, and disputes. Mars rules the 12th house of hospitals, end of life, violence, of course. So these 2 are in a planetary war here. So that makes them weak as well. There's not a single planet in this chart that is considered strong. So there's no protection. And the subperiod is Mercury. And Mercury, as we discussed, is in a house afflicted by Ketu. So it's vulnerable, it's weak. So now let's take a look at the chart for the United States, which shows a similar thing going on in the country. Now this is the chart that we use for the United States. This is called the Samva USA chart, Systems Approach to Mundane Vedic Astrology. This chart was developed over many years of research by some very talented Vedic astrologers. It's not based on July 4th, 1776, which in my opinion is when we went to war with England. It was a divorce. That was not the United States Union. This is the chart that was based when the country formed a perpetual union. And this chart seems to work quite well. Now currently, the country is in a sun main period, which just started a little more than a year and a half ago. Sun is very well placed in the chart. So in general, this can be a fairly good 6-year period. But we do have to watch the subperiods, and of course, the transits cause significant events in life. We always have to know where the slow-moving transit planets are. You always want to know where Jupiter takes 13 months to go through a sign, 12, 13 months. Saturn takes 2.5 years. Rahu and Ketu take 18 months. So the current operating planet since June has been Rahu. And this runs until next May 2018. Rahu in this chart does cause trouble because, see, it's close to the rising sign degree. This is not an arbitrary number. It's very specific to the time of birth. There is 0 to 30 degrees possible. So every 4 minutes, this degree changes. So in this case, the most effective point would be 15 degrees up to 25 degrees. You allow 5 degrees on either side. So Rahu and Ketu here are within 5 degrees. At 20 degrees, it would be 100% impact. So at 19, it would be 80% impact. So at 18, it's a 60% impact. But nonetheless, Rahu and Ketu have a 60% impact in the houses they occupy and the houses they aspect. 5, 7, and 9 houses away. 5, 7, and 9 houses away. And because they are in odd signs, they undermine the rulers of those odd signs. In other words, Mars rules this, so Mars becomes weak because its house is afflicted. Sun becomes weak because its house is afflicted. Venus becomes weak because its house is afflicted by both Rahu and Ketu. Saturn becomes weak because Ketu afflicts the 8th house. And Mars becomes weak because Rahu and Ketu both afflict Aries. So there's some inherent weakness. And this will show up during the subperiods of the operating planet. So that's part of what's going on. The other major part of what's going on, take a look at Rahu here at 29 degrees. Now Rahu and Ketu are at 29 degrees currently. Take this Rahu, slide him over here. He's sitting here at 29 degrees. He aspects 5 houses away, 7 houses away, and 9 houses away. So Rahu right now is afflicting this Saturn. He has been afflicting Saturn basically since April. And this goes till the end of October. So transit Rahu is afflicting natal Saturn. But transit Rahu is also afflicting transit Saturn. This has been going on since the 1st of April. And this transit will be over at the end of October. Saturn rules the masses. And in this chart, for the Cancer rising sign, the 6th ruler Jupiter becomes a functional malefic planet, and the 8th ruler Saturn becomes the most malefic planet. This 12th house does not contain a Mulcher-Cone sign, so the 12th ruler does not cause trouble. But for the Cancer rising sign chart, Rahu, Ketu, Jupiter, and Saturn are the functional malefic planets. Now this Jupiter at 4 degrees aspects Moon at 7 degrees. Moon rules the chart. Jupiter rules conflict and disputes and enemies, mental tension. So that is why we've had so many wars. So this Rahu is afflicting this Saturn. There are 3 ways to take a look at the transit impact. Transit planets can have an impact on transit planets. Transit planets can have an impact on natal planets. And natal planets can have an impact on transit planets. So look at this Saturn. He's right over here. He's sitting here at 28 degrees. And he's been hanging around this Saturn for quite some time. He's very slow moving. See, Saturn went 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. It pulled into here at the end of January, but then went retrograde back over this Saturn. And now he's coming over for the 3rd and final time. So this is one of these long-lived unhappy events, and it's been pretty stressful for this country for months and months and months. So as this Saturn pulls away from this Saturn, it would be helpful. And as this Saturn pulls away from the influence of this Rahu, that'll be helpful. Now, as long as we're talking about the chart for the United States, I have to point something else out. It's not ideal, unfortunately. See this rising sign, 20 degrees, its most effective point. Watch the transit of Rahu and Ketu here. This is the chart for the United States. This inner circle is exactly this chart. It's just the circular format. The outer circle is the transits of the planets. So you can see how this Saturn is. Let's back this up here for a couple of minutes. See back here, November 15th, 2016. It's interesting, it's right around the election time. This Saturn started to come over this Saturn. See, transit Saturn was at 21 degrees. We'll go another 2 weeks here. We'll call it the 1st of December. Here you have Saturn at 23 degrees, and this Saturn is 26. So that's within the 5-degree orb. So this started December 1st, 2016. That's for the whole month of December. It pulled away at the end of January, in February, March. But then went retrograde, came back. So we'll call this July 1st. She's 29, this is 26. It's pretty close. So this is for all of July, all of August, all of September. Now he's pulling away. So the end of October he'll be separate. He'll be 20 degrees. He'll be at 0 and this will be 26. But keep watching this number. I'm concerned because this number is going to come up. When Rahu and Ketu get to even 23 and 22 and 21 degrees, that's going to be it's going to cause a lot of stress. And then at 20 degrees, it's 100% affliction. But my experience is that when it's applying to that number, it becomes very intense. So this is for the United States coming up. We're going to call this December 1st this year. 23 degrees. They always travel retrograde, so they're going to go down 23, 22, 21, 20. So you're going to start noticing issues in the country, serious issues, on December 1st. Look at this, on January 1st. They're going to be at 21 degrees. Well, on January 13th, I think, they hit 20 degrees. There it is, January 13th, 20 degrees. Now, if they just kept moving, it wouldn't be so severe, but they're not. This is where they go stationary. And they're just going to stop at that number for weeks. Now, this was a beautiful lesson that I learned from Professor Chowdhury. I have 108 books on Vedic astrology, and not one of those other astrologers ever mentioned that Rahu and Ketu go stationary at a particular degree for up to 3 months, and then they move 9 degrees and stop again for up to 3 months. And then they move 9 degrees and stop again for up to 3 months. And if they stop at your particular rising sign degree, they will seriously afflict 6 of the 12 houses. 100% affliction. Now in this case, they're in Cancer and Capricorn, which are the even signs. Even signs are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So look at this Rahu. He's going to stop transit Rahu right in the first house at 20 degrees. So this is January 13th. Let's count some weeks. Watch this number here. See when it changes. And even when it changes to 19 and 18, we really have to get it down to 17 to clear. So let's see how long they're going to be hanging around. This is January 13th in terms of weeks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 weeks. So April 21st. So that is quite a serious, intense affliction from, we'll call it middle of January to middle of April for the country. That's coming up. So that's going to be very, very stressful. Okay, these were just a few points to talk about this mass shooting in Las Vegas and how it ties in with the country's chart.